let's kick off. Thank you very much for joining us today. I am Maddie. I'm our events and partnerships manager at NationBuilder. I'm based in London in the UK, so it's nearing the end of my day. But very excited about today's session, which is really all about turning Giving Tuesday from a single day of generosity into a year-round movement. And so we'll explore how organizations like Local Motion and the Giving Tuesday team use storytelling, digital tools, and community engagement to not only raise funds, but also build that lasting momentum, lasting relationships, and sustained impact all throughout the year. With me today, we have Christina Erickson, as well as Kelsey Kramer, and I will let you both introduce yourselves very quickly. I will not say who you are for you. So Christina, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Thanks, Maddie. Hello, everyone. My name is Christina Erickson, she, her, and I am based in the great little state of Vermont in Burlington, where we're in the midst of a snowstorm right now. And I've been the executive director of Local Motion for about 3 years now. I'm happy to be here.
Amazing. And I am also very happy to be here. I'm Kelsey Kramer. I'm the director of partnerships at Giving Tuesday. On our data commons team, I can share a little bit more about that later, but I am joining you from upstate New York, where it is also nice and snowy. And cue our sweaters on this call. And excited to be here. Thank you.
Thanks both. If there are any burning questions, please do pop them in the chat. But yes, let's dive in by talking about how Giving Tuesday has evolved into what it is today. So Kelsey, I'm going to start with you. Giving Tuesday has become a global movement. Can you tell us a bit about how it has evolved and really what drives its growth?
Sure, yeah. So for those that might not be as familiar with some of the history and the lore of Giving Tuesday was created in 2012. When the folks that had the idea came up with it, it was sort of a simple idea. Like, what if we had a day to encourage people to do good? And it was really in response to Black Friday and Cyber Monday, those days sort of dedicated to getting rather than giving. And over the past decade, the idea has really grown into this global movement that inspires millions of people around the world to collaborate, to give, and celebrate generosity in all of its forms every day of the year, not just on Giving Tuesday. I think what has inspired some of this growth over time is that we have really co-created or tried to co-create Giving Tuesday with the many different communities around the world that participate. We sort of live by the motto of tools, not rules. And very early on in the development of Giving Tuesday, we wanted it to feel co-owned by the nonprofits and communities that were taking part in it. I think a good example of this is when the logo for Giving Tuesday was created. Our now CEO, who was working on the project at the time, was like, let's not trademark it. Let's invite people to do whatever they want with the logo. And the designer of the logo was like, whoa, 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 that is totally radical. What are you talking about? It's our logo. But we've made that decision really early on. And I'm so glad that we did. We've seen the coolest things happen with like just the logo. One of my favorites is Giving Zoos Day, which is a coalition of zoos around the US that has like co-fundraise together. They used to do it, they stopped for a while, and I believe that they are doing that again this year. But they took it, like totally branded it their own and made Giving Zoos Day a thing. And if you go on our website, you can see all of the beautiful logos that have been developed for countries around the world that run Giving Tuesday campaigns. So this like co-ownership and giving people the ability to get creative and really utilize it for their needs, I think has been really crucial to that evolution. And then just the last thing I'll say on that is I mentioned that I'm the director of partnerships for the data commons at Giving Tuesday, and a lot of people don't know what that is. I think one of the reasons we've been able to grow and really support nonprofits over the years is that we have been trying to understand giving behaviors and motivations through our data commons work. So we have this thing called the data commons, where I work, and we try and understand how people give, why people give, what influences their giving behaviors. And of course, we try and understand what's happening on the day of Giving Tuesday, but we look at that year round. So we have a team of data scientists and engineers and researchers that work to provide data and insights and learnings to inform our practices. So if you're interested in any of that data, or you're a data nerd yourself, I encourage you to check out our website. But I think those are really the key ingredients to how the movement has evolved over time.
Yeah, I love that it's grown organically with the communities themselves as well. Christina, Local Motion has such a strong community focus as well. How does Giving Tuesday fit into your broader mission and year-end fundraising strategy?
Yeah, thank you. So Local Motion is Vermont's statewide bicycle and pedestrian advocacy organization. We were founded in 1999, and while we used to be focused pretty much in our immediate city area of Burlington, we became statewide in 2012. And so we really do have a broad community focus, and our mission is to make it safe, accessible, and fun for everyone to bike, walk, and roll in Vermont. And whether that's people who live here or people who visit here, we do have a lot of visitors. And one of the ways that we generate revenue is renting bicycles to many locals and visitors from around the world. And we also operate a boat that takes people across a 200-foot gap in a rail trail in the middle of Lake Champlain. And I encourage you all to look it up, localmotion.org/bike ferry. It's one of a kind in that I think we are, and happy to have anyone fact check me on this, I think we're the only nonprofit owned and operated bicycle and pedestrian only ferry. So check it out if you're a fan of rail trails or other things. It's a great way. So our community is, our cycles, cycles of community from internal to broader ways of reaching our community nationwide, as people come from all over the world to ride the trails here and ride our bike ferry. And Giving Tuesday specifically has been a part of it actually falls in pretty neatly into our year-end fundraising appeal that's starting tomorrow, actually, for us, and runs through the end of December, the end of the tax year here in the US. So it's just been a nice way for us to do a special call out on that day. And I appreciate, Kelsey's reminder of the history of Giving Tuesday and a real antidote to the taking, but giving back. And that's really important for us and all nonprofit organizations these days.
Yeah, so it sounds like Giving Tuesday is a really natural extension of your annual work rather than an extra effort on top of it. But so both of you have seen Giving Tuesday from very, very different vantage points. What does success look like for your organizations on that day?
Yeah, I'll say for us, we love people to engage with us in lots of different ways. Liking our social media content, showing up to volunteer, all these things. But truly, we are an employer, we are a business. We just happen to be a nonprofit business, and we still have to pay our employees and pay health insurance costs and all those types of things. So dollars really make a huge difference to us. And so we see a sign of success when we have people showing up and engage, and making their financial contributions, especially in this current age of federal and state grants going away for nonprofit organizations. This is a way that individuals can show up and support the nonprofit sector that really supports so many essential community services across the world.
Yeah, and I mean our answer is actually pretty similar. And for us it's simple, right? It's not for us. We don't want to see that generosity coming towards us, but we want to see people showing up for the communities that they care about and really activating their generosity. I think for those of us in the nonprofit sector, we like Giving Tuesday is such lore, right? We hear so much commentary about Giving Tuesday. Is it worth the hype? Is it worth investing the ROI, etc.? I think all of these questions are really important, and you should be asking those of your own organization. But like zooming out, I think that commentary sort of misses the point of the day of Giving Tuesday overall. The day is really about giving people the opportunity to participate in giving. And as Christina said, at a time when other forms of funding and other forms of support, not just fundraising, are fragile and not as reliable, we really need to rely on people to support our organizations. And so we want to see nonprofits activating and inviting people in to be part of that, because people love to participate in something that is bigger than themselves, and letting people do that and not feel like they are alone in that, and knowing that there are millions of people around the world that are also giving. It also just feels really good as a giver. I hope that everybody on this call is not only activating their nonprofits, but they're also participating as a giver, because we all have the capacity to give too, right? So I think for us, it's activating that, giving people the opportunity to feel and to act on the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So really a mix of engagement and impact. I think seeing the dollars come in is critical, but that community activation piece is just as powerful. So let's talk a bit about how to actually plan for that success. So what would you consider effective planning practices for a Giving Tuesday campaign from both of your vantage points?
Yeah, I can start. I think there are some like really basic things, but for every campaign, it's going to look a little bit different. But number one, it's making sure that you set realistic and stretch goals, and making sure that everyone knows what those are. So everyone that is involved in your campaign knows what the goals are, knows what they're aiming towards. We recommend setting SMART goals. For those that aren't familiar with SMART goals, those are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals. So you want to reflect goals that are set goals that reflect both your capacity as an organization and your values. So, for example, maybe you are trying to use Giving Tuesday to attract new donors or a new demographic of donors, like engaging younger generations or something. Maybe you want to transform one-time donors to recurring donors, or figure out why donors give on this day versus other days of the year. It doesn't have to be a fundraising goal either. So those are just examples of goals that you could decide you want to achieve. And if you're doing Giving Tuesday for the first time, we recommend that you actually don't start setting a monetary goal, that you develop a baseline. You try something new and you see what your baseline is for Giving Tuesday, and then you can build on that year over year. Maybe instead set an activation or a participation number. So most important, set that goal, and then making sure that your community, your team, your volunteers, your stakeholders, they know what the goal is so that they can help you achieve it. The worst thing that we sort of like see is that people set a goal, but then they haven't communicated it to their audience, and they're like, we didn't hit the goal. And it's because you didn't let people know how they could get involved and be part of that goal, right? The other thing that we try and encourage everyone to do, we know nonprofits are very under-resourced, and you don't have a huge team there to help you do your Giving Tuesday campaign. So mobilize your inner circle. For some of you, that'll just be staff. But once you have your goal, go through your list of sort of tactics and the goals that you want to achieve, and pinpoint who can help you make it happen. You want to consider your sort of organizational team that's going to help you get things done. But are there other community partners, like media, businesses, local organizations, influencers, ambassadors in your community that can also help you achieve those goals? And then the third sort of strategy or best practice for planning ahead of Giving Tuesday, I would say, is making sure that you have a pre Giving Tuesday plan and a post Giving Tuesday plan. Like Christina already talked about how they folded into their annual appeal. We also see one of the biggest mistakes is that people plan for Giving Tuesday and then they don't have any sort of lead up that they're doing or any post Giving Tuesday activation. So the day itself is really important, but surrounding that activity sort of drives the effectiveness of it. So before, you want to prep your community for how you want them to show up. If you're doing a fundraising campaign, again, what is that goal? And our research shows that donors and volunteers that show up on Giving Tuesday are very sticky. They stick around. So making sure that you provide opportunities after Giving Tuesday to activate them and you know how you're going to do it. Maybe it's just a thank you note, but maybe you're inviting them to be part of additional appeals that you're running throughout the year. So making sure that you're giving opportunities to keep in touch with your sort of new fleet of supporters is really important.
That makes a lot of sense. Christina, anything to add there?
Yeah, I'll say that one thing that we've, that I read is sort of a best practice and that we've played around with is trying to have something very specific or concrete that we're fundraising for that day so that it gives us something a little more tangible to understand with. And so, for example, something we're going to be highlighting again this year is actually fundraising for an adaptive bicycle. That is something that we're able to use in our education programs and in our rental fleet. Actually, very, very specifically, this is something that we had included in a grant application and it did not get funded. So it's something we need. And the funding isn't coming from elsewhere. So now is an opportunity for our community to help us purchase this needed piece of equipment so that we can further our mission work throughout the state.
And how far in advance do you think organizations should plan, and what should they choose to prioritize early, especially if we're thinking about small teams?
Yeah, I'll just, from our perspective, we start planning our year-end appeal, including Giving Tuesday in September. And then for our rollout, that's starting this week. So it's a good month and a half in advance. And then we, do a good debrief at the end too, and really revisit those notes through our other fundraising that we do throughout the year too. So it's sort of a constant, but for this specific appeal, we start in September.
We always say the earlier the better. We know that that's not a luxury that we all have, and we understand that. I would just say make sure that your planning matches your ambition. So if you have a huge campaign that you're planning to run with lots of different stakeholders, multiple goals, you want to start planning much earlier. If it's a month before and you're doing this for the first time, like Christina, it sounds like you have a sort of like a formula that you guys do every year. And so you have you have a plan and you execute it. And so starting planning in September makes a ton of sense. If you're doing something new and you don't have a ton of time, again, like recommend setting a specific goal, trying something new, maybe doing a new experiment, and making sure that you're not overcomplicating things just because you want the day to be successful, right? So don't overcommit yourself and go back to those SMART goals. And the other thing I would say for prioritizing early, regardless of the amount of time that you have, is really nailing that narrative and communicating to your stakeholders. I feel like I'm being really repetitive at this point, but really nailing what it is you're asking people to do and asking them to participate in, and making sure that your team knows it.
Yeah, so aligning your goals, your story, and your stakeholders. And speaking of stories, I think Giving Tuesday is just as much about storytelling as it is about fundraising. And so what makes a story resonate with supporters?
I can go first here. So we worked with the amazing, if folks don't know, Julia Campbell. She's a expert storyteller and nonprofit communicator and coaches lots of nonprofits. And we worked with her on some storytelling resources this year. So I'm stealing from Julia because I think it's really clear and helpful advice. So she says connection, challenge, and change are the like key ingredients to an effective story. So for connection, you want to start by sort of like introducing a relatable protagonist, a real person, an animal, a place, something that embodies your mission, using sensory details, emotion, something that readers can sort of see themselves in, rather than saying something like, our program provides bicycle routes to our community. Christina, that's a really bad example of how you would describe your organization. But instead of saying that, you can say, meet so and so. They have, utilized our trails to achieve their goals. So you really want to make it about the people or the mission. Two is challenge. So you want to show what is at stake, what obstacle or sort of barrier stood in the way of someone being able to achieve something. This is where the sort of like tension and urgency can come in. We know those two things are very effective in storytelling, and where you sort of build relevance. So you can make the problem clearer if the reader sort of really feels compelled to help show up and help solve the issue. So a good story isn't just like what happened, it's what matters right now. And then the last piece of that is change. So connection, challenge, and change. That is your call to action. So what are you asking people to do? You want to show that transformation, no matter how small. So stories don't have to be tied up in a beautiful bow or like perfect. That's not reality, but you want to focus on sort of the outcome. So not the organization again. You want to focus on the outcome. What was your organization able to help someone, an animal, a play, whatever it is, achieve? So we recommend those like ingredients in storytelling. Again, you want to tie it back to whatever your goal is, but those are the sort of the sweet spots. I'm curious, Christina, if you have ways that you guys have been able to communicate effectively on Giving Tuesday or any day.
Yeah, I suppose, Christina, how does Local Motion connect local stories to a global moment like Giving Tuesday?
Yeah, so we're an example of I have many peers across the US, and I'd say across the world too. And there are different, for example, bicycle and pedestrian advocacy organizations. There are like 30 statewide ones here and several city-based ones. So we're an example among many, and I think that's probably true for many themes or topics that across the nonprofit sector, whether it's a food bank or some other social service need or a community center or something like that. So and I think we connect most often with neighbors and folks around us. Not that we should not connect with others who are different or having other experiences. Certainly, that's also very important. But there is that sense of connection and familiarity, and so supporting the things that are around you and locally and that are supporting your community where you choose to live if you are making a choice to live in a certain area. So I think there's that opportunity, and I'll challenge myself a little bit to use the example that we're going to use on Giving Tuesday with Kelsey's connection, challenge, change. So the connection, these adaptive bikes that we have allow people, children or adults that may have a physical or a developmental disability to be able to participate in their PE class where they're doing learning how to ride bikes better, or out on the trail here at our rental shop. So no matter who they are, and so we have these with people's permissions, these glorious photographs of folks of, again, different backgrounds, different abilities, with just huge smiles on their face. You can feel the joy that is coming through in these photos, and explaining a little more specifically of how if we didn't have this adaptive bike, these people or these families may not be able to participate in the same way together. And so there is an emotional draw in that. And I mean, I've witnessed it by watching people get into these bicycles and ride around together. And I saw an older woman this year who I will assume was, an elder mother and maybe her adult son pedaling her around. And she just had the most giant smile on her face. You could tell she was just exuding joy. It was fabulous. The challenge, as I mentioned before, we would love to have another bike, but our one funding source that we were hoping to came through did not. So here is this opportunity to make a change where our community, our individuals can help us achieve adding to our fleet so we can get more people of all abilities out experiencing the joy for recreation or transportation of riding a bicycle, no matter their physical or other abilities. So that's a way that, and that could happen in Vermont, that can happen in Iowa, that can happen in the UK, like no matter where you are, you're going to find a similar story to that. So that would be my example.
Yeah, and how local campaigns can always plug into a bigger movement. Kelsey, have you seen stories turn one-day campaigns into, I suppose, long-term relationships, long-term movements?
Yeah, I know we've been talking a lot about fundraising. I don't want to sort of de-emphasize or devalue how important the fundraising component of Giving Tuesday is for so many organizations, but we have seen organizations utilize Giving Tuesday as a way to develop long-term relationships and do that really effectively. So we work with an organization called Spur Local. They're based in DC. They run their Giving Tuesday campaign for local nonprofits in the DC area. And this year they developed an additional giving day for the DC area called Give Greater DC. They ran this, they raised over $300,000 for I think around 150 nonprofits in their area. So this is not Giving Tuesday specifically, but just an example of how you can kind of take one day and turn it into a bigger relationship. Their communications director shared a story with us about how they were reaching out to local organizations to get involved. They reached out to a local civic action organization, asking them to participate in this day and sort of bouncing off ideas. And that turned into this other organization developing a volunteer program with the Spur Local community. And if they didn't have this day where they were going out and asking nonprofits and other organizations in their community to participate, they don't think this relationship would have developed. So now they have this volunteer program that they're running with this other organization in their local community, and it's turned into a beautiful long-term relationship, really filling a need that they had for volunteers. So, if it's November 11th, it's less than 30 days away from Giving Tuesday. If you're still like, what we're going to do for Giving Tuesday, and maybe you have some real volunteer needs right now, you could, outreach to members of your community and say, like, maybe we could kick off that we're building this volunteer program together and announce it on Giving Tuesday or something of the sort. But that's just an example of how some other organizations have kind of utilized momentum from the day.
Yeah, it's so inspiring to see all these campaigns ripple out beyond a single day. And so once you've got that storytelling element down, I suppose the tech and the data can really amplify that impact. And so, Christina, how do digital tools like NationBuilder help build momentum beyond Giving Tuesday? And for smaller organizations with maybe limited capacity, how can they still leverage tech effectively?
Yeah, we're a pretty small team. Our full-time year-round team across all of our work is 12 people. And so we have a communications person, myself, that is kind of the primary fundraising person, and then 3 other folks who do a couple of hours a week on our collaborative communications. So we fairly small, larger than some, but and so we've been actually using NationBuilder for about a decade, and it truly has been very helpful for us to integrate our website, our email communications, our supporter database, all of that in one place, and just be able to play between the two or between all of those areas. So that has been very helpful to us. And yet there are still challenges, which are, I think no matter the platform or anything, of just email deliverability these days is challenging, seems to be changing by the day. And so we try to follow all the best practices that we can, and still sometimes things wind up in different promotions or other folders. And so we continue to try to keep up with that. And it's a bit of a moving target, but all in all, NationBuilder has been really helpful for us as an integrated tool.
Yeah, and I suppose it helps you keep your supporters engaged, informed, whatnot. And so what role would you consider data plays in understanding and deepening those relationships with your donors?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's just keeping track. And I mean, I like to geek out on the tagging feature in NationBuilder specifically, and that I know the different, this person showed up to an event, they gave at this time last year, all of the different data elements that we can integrate, and it helps us personalize messaging that goes out as well. So that's something I've really like about the tools.
Yeah, and I think it hints that even small teams can achieve a lot with the right tools. Yeah, Kelsey, anything to add in terms of what you've seen organizations do with other tools perhaps as well? Just any best practices to share there?
Yeah, I would just add on to, I mean, Christina sort of nailed the like being able to personalize messages and making sure that you're able to have the follow-up communication is really important. And if you don't have the tools to help you organize those things, is really difficult and manual. So I think one of the biggest mistakes that we see is that nonprofits don't follow up with their donors or supporters that they might attract or engage with on Giving Tuesday. In 2022, we saw Giving Tuesday be a bigger day for donor acquisition than December 31st, which like tends to be one of the biggest days for that for many nonprofits. And so you're acquiring lots of new donors, and the biggest mistake that you can make is not following up with them. So making sure that you have tools to help you identify who your new donors were. And like I said, like making sure you have a plan for when you're going to follow up with them. I don't think there is like one right way to do that, but just making sure that you know you're going to get new supporters on Giving Tuesday. How are you going to activate them again? Is it in 2 weeks? Is it in a couple months? You want to make sure you say thank you, but how are you going to activate those donors again and engage them in your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both for sharing those practical tips. If we now think about sustaining momentum after the campaign, how can organizations carry Giving Tuesday energy through year end and beyond?
I will just sort of repeat what I just said. So making sure you thank your donors. I would say that's number one. That's like the easiest way that you can re-engage those people that showed up. But also thank your volunteers and thank those stakeholders that you ask to help with your Giving Tuesday campaign. If you're asking your board and your volunteers to share about Giving Tuesday, make sure you thank them. You can do that in many different ways. You can do that publicly, you can do that privately, whatever you think is sort of best for your different communities, but make sure you do that thanking. You also want to celebrate your success. So did you reach your goal? You should let your community know if you reached your goal. They want to be part of celebrating that with you. If you didn't reach your goal, talk about what happened. Talk about, were there other successes or learnings that you had on that day? But recap the moment with your community. That's another like easy touch point that you can have. Ask again. So again, if you're running a year-end campaign, you could ask again before the year ends to those donors. But again, make a plan for making a second ask. We, with another organization, we did a little bit of analysis on Giving Tuesday donors and recurring donors, and about 80% of people that signed up as a recurring donor on Giving Tuesday donated again before year end to the same organizations. So effectively communicate with those donors and make sure you have a plan for engaging them.
Christina, anything to add? That's a crazy insight, the 80% figure. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think yes to all of that. And we try to offer ways for people to be engaged and connected throughout the year in a variety of ways. And again, we also depend on a lot of volunteers. And so we're constantly recruiting and thanking folks from showing up to help us out with various projects. But there are other ways too. You know, we have merchandise, so we encourage people to buy and wear their t-shirts that have beautiful local artwork and our logo on them. And so that's a way of spreading the word out there, or renting bicycles with us, or when their family or friends come to town, encouraging them to do that. Or riding the bike ferry, or coming to one of our events. And so it's just lots of ways to get involved, and to the very passive, you know, following our social content. And I just want to shout out to Val, our communications specialist, who creates amazing content out there without any AI. Thank you very much. And what she puts out there is really tremendous. So and fun, and hopefully connects people. We've had people on our staff be like, well, so what? So what about that? Well, if people see it, they enjoy it, hopefully it brings them back so that they show up to meet our call for volunteers. Or when we're hosting an event, they're like, oh yeah, those people are fun and they're doing really good work. I want to be part of that. So we try to have ways to engage pretty much all the time.
Yeah, especially after that initial excitement of Giving Tuesday, you want to be able to keep your community engaged, and saying thank you and celebrating success. It really does encourage repeated giving. So thank you both for sharing that. I suppose as we wrap up, I thought perhaps a rapid fire round to close us out from both of you. What's one lesson or insight you wish more organizations understood about Giving Tuesday?
Mine is, I think, simple. If you don't ask, you're not going to get. So even if you don't have the capacity to plan a campaign, making sure that you acknowledge Giving Tuesday and make it somehow public on your social or on your website, that that you as an organization and that people have a way to participate is really crucial. Like I said, more people are aware of Giving Tuesday, and so you might have more random people showing up on your website or looking for you, or looking for an organization to support. And if they don't see an easy way to do so, you might lose them. So, you know, making sure that you ask on the day in some shape or form, I think, is one of the best ways that you can activate.
Yeah, and I'll reiterate, dollars are really important, and not everyone can give at every time, but everybody can give dollars all the time. But most people are able to do something, again, and whether that's they're choosing to follow social content, or they're willing to volunteer or something like that, it is a way of engaging. And maybe later, when they do have ability to give dollars, or their friends are, or their family members, somebody else that might be able to do so. So just, there is a way to connect, again, with the many nonprofit organizations that are doing incredible, and I say essential work in our communities. There is a way for everyone to get involved, even if it's thanking the nonprofit organizations for the work that they're doing. So I think there's a very reciprocal relationship that can happen there.
Yeah, and it's great that you're able to engage with people by meeting them where they're at. And if it means not donating right now, that's not to say they can't happen at a later date. In one sentence, what does community power mean to both of you?
Well, I'll just recognize that times are tough for a variety of people in a variety of ways, and I still believe in the power of collective action. And so encouraging a gift of any size or an action of any size can really add up.
+1. I'll just say, yeah, our sentiment is that everyone has the capacity and is capable of giving. And so witnessing that and having people come together to participate in that is a beautiful example of collective power.
Well, thank you very much, Christina, Kelsey. I hope that this was useful to everyone here. Thank you so much again for attending our discussion today. And like I said, I hope it was useful to everyone in the room, and enjoy the rest of your day. And good luck at Giving Tuesday.